Hi, Antonia. Hope you're doing well. Hi, Jean. How are you doing? And hello, Margaret.
Hi,
Hello. How are you all?
good, thank you. I'm sorry I haven't been in touch. I've just had a lot going on.
That's okay. That's okay. We can talk another time. In fact, I'll email you later today, and we'll have a chat. But is everyone doing well? Ooh, we've got Joyce coming in as well. Okay, excellent. So we've probably got quite a small group today. I had a huge issue with LinkedIn last week where I got kicked out of the account and taking me days to come back. So that's why I normally get people. Margaret's nodding her head. She's like, "Yeah, I tried to find you on LinkedIn and you've
No, it
disappeared."
happened to me yesterday.
Did it happen to you as well?
LinkedIn, a real mess. I wondered if it was hacked actually. So,
I wonder if I could have been hacked as well. I don't know. I don't know what's happened, but it did mean that where I normally I created an event on
I'm not
LinkedIn.
sure.
Oh, I will
I'm not
just
sure.
Antonia while she's speaking. But yes, normally that's where I put an event on, and that's where I get most of my crowd. And so I didn't have any of that. So really, I'm amazed. I've got you three lovely ladies here. I'm like, yes, I'm not on my own. This is a result as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know how many more people will be joining us because I wasn't able to put an event on LinkedIn or do anything public. Just the normal emails that go out. But while we're waiting, let's give it a couple of more minutes. If you can go into the chat and let me know what you'd like to gain from this session, and then that will help me so I know if I've covered it. If I haven't covered it, I'll hopefully cover it in the Q&A portion of the forum. And if it's extra juicy, I may even do a whole forum session on it in the future. So just if everyone knows where the chat is, just click on the bubble chat icon, and then you can go in there and just put in what you would like to gain from this particular session. Okay, we'll just let the room run for another minute or so. But yeah, it's been interesting, Margaret. It's been kind of made you kind of feel a little bit lost, don't you? You're kind of like, but it's my place. Why can't I get into it? You start to feel a little indignant, almost like, but it's mine. What do you? It does make you realize though how we are so comfortable now on various parts of social media, but it's really not ours. It never really is ours. It's somebody else's platform, but you make it your home, and all it takes is something like this to happen, and you feel lost. It's quite scary, isn't it?
yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so are you all still putting things into the chat, or you're just going to hold your peace today? If you'd rather not put anything to the chat, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, it does help me if you put things in the chat, and that way I know if I'm covering this or not today. Okay, so let's get started. Like I said, I don't think we're going to get any more people. Well, we'll see. But I don't think we're going to get any more people. I'm happy that I've got you bunch here because this is pretty good. I thought it was just going to be me just talking to myself today. Okay, so let's get started. So let me start sharing my screen. Let's start this. Okay, so first of all, if I can ask you all to mute, and then that way I get very easily distracted, and I'm walking. You don't want me falling off my treadmill and causing myself a mischief. So if you can put yourself on mute, it means just for a while I'm doing the presentation, I'm not distracted, I don't fall off my treadmill. And then of course, after that, I want you to come off mute. So I think you've all been here before. So first of all, thank you and welcome to the Thought Leader Author Forum. And I think you've all been here before, but let me just quickly go through the structure. First of all, part one is where we talk about the topic of the day. So I'll do a short presentation. It's usually just about 10 to 15 minutes most of the times. And today we're talking about how authors use their books to sell their products, their programs or services for them, how they utilize books. That's really, really important. A lot of people just kind of create a book and they stick it on Amazon or some other platform, and there you go, done, ta-da. And it's like there's so many ways of using your book that lots of authors are missing out. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then part two, my favorite bit of the forum, is when I open it up to the floor. And this is where you can ask me questions, you can give me feedback, you can tell me stories about what you've done in the past if you're already an author. This is where you can really join in and get heard, you know, and get under and understand how this will work for you. So do join in. And as I think you've all been here before, as you will know, because you've attended, you will get this workbook sent out in the mail tomorrow morning. So feel free to scribble things down, but at the same time, you don't need to. You will get this workbook and it will go through everything that I talk about today in a lot more detail than I'll be able to cover today as well. And this will go into how you can turn your, I call it how you can turn your book into the ultimate sales rep. If you know how to do this well, your book starts to do a lot of the selling for you, which is wonderful, right? It is like having a sales rep, but you don't have to pay them. Because normally if you have a sales rep, you know, you have to pay them commission or a salary or something like that. You can turn your book into the ultimate sales rep if you do it right, and you don't have to pay anything because it's just a book. And also, just for attending the Thought Leader Author Forum, you get the chance to pick one of these amazing causes, and we will make a donation on your behalf. In fact, let me just put that into the chat now, I think would be a good idea. And then that way, just put this into the chat now. Okay, so that should be in the chat now. So you can all go and click on that link. Please do. It doesn't cost you anything, by the way. It just means you get to pick one of these amazing causes, and then we will donate to them on your behalf. Okay. Okay, so how do you turn a book into the ultimate sales rep? So if you followed me for any length of time, you'll know I love my infographics. I love acronyms. I love alliteration because my brain is full of holes and it doesn't contain much at all otherwise. Margaret's laughing at me. It's true. This is why I create pictures and infographics so I remember. And then the wonderful thing is I've been doing this all my life, and I've only recently realized that most people's brains are like sieves as well. I wasn't the unusual one. Most people don't remember much at all. And if you can put it into a picture or an alliteration or an acronym, then it sticks in their head. So this will hopefully stick in your head. So I call this my zero selling system. And this is something that I've put together with my past clients, just listening to their stories of how they're using their books to sell for them so they don't have to do much selling at all. So as you can see, you've got the steps. You've got pre-sale, peri-sale, and post-sale. And at the top, you see sold. So whenever you have a client, or a prospective client, I should say, and you want them to become your client, you want them to go into your program, or you want to sell them a product or whatever it is, all sales go through 3 phases. You have the pre-sale, as the name suggests, that's before someone, that's usually the run of the marketing, what you do before somebody is in front of you. Peri-sale is during the sale. So for me, it would be in a strategy session, for example. And post-sale is afterwards. Not every single person you speak to, in fact, most people will need some time to think about it. Unless he's selling something that's really maybe, you know, it's only under $100 or £100, then maybe that is something people can decide straight away. For example, Margaret, she's one of my clients. I wasn't horrible enough to put her under pressure and say, well, I need you to make a decision right now on this call. That's a bit harsh. It's a bit of an investment of time and energy and money to work with someone like me. She needed time to go away and think about it. So that area, when someone needs to go away and think about working with you, is what I class as post-sale. So let's see how some of my authors have been using their books during each of these. I'm not even doing all of these yet. I need to actually incorporate some of it, but some of my clients are doing so well. This is why I created this zero sell system. And hopefully you remember them because it's pre-sale, peri-sale, post-sale. All starts with P. See how I'm making it easy for you all to remember? If you keep these 3 Ps in mind, you can start creating inventive ways that you can use your book to help you sell your programs, your services, your products, so you don't have to do much selling. So the first is pre-sale, okay? And this is a good question to ask yourself. Do you sell or do you diagnose? Do you sell or do you diagnose? Now, what I mean by that is what most people do when they are wanting to get a client or a customer is they talk about how amazing their product is, like how it's going to be fantastic. They haven't really diagnosed the problem. And that's when you come across as salesy. We all have. I bet we've experienced all kinds of sales in our lifetime so far. We've experienced good sales and we've experienced terrible sales and everything in between. When it's good, it doesn't even feel like sales. You've experienced it. Perhaps you've gone into a store and you met a wonderful assistant who spent time figuring out, tell me what's the issue? What is it that you need? What are you looking for? And they figured out exactly what you needed and then showed you whatever product it is that serves your needs. You felt amazing. You love that person. You didn't think, oh my God, that person is being salesy. You love that person because that person listened to you and they diagnosed your problem and then offered a solution. The sale, when you had experience of bad sales, it's usually when you figured that person doesn't really care about your needs, doesn't really care about your wants. I'm sure Margaret's nodding her head. I'm pretty sure the reason, Margaret, you became my client is you felt that I understood your needs. And I said, this is what you want to achieve as an author, as a future thought leader. This is what you wanted. And then I said, this is what I can do in my program. I diagnosed the problem and I offered a solution. When you do that, it doesn't even feel like sales. People feel grateful because you're helping them come to a conclusion. Sales only feels awful when you feel like that person isn't even listening to you. All they want to do is convert you into a sales. All that they're looking at you as a pound sign or a dollar sign. That's all they're looking at you for. And that's when sales feels awful. Now, what some of my clients have been doing, and this, I haven't even started doing this yet, but what one of my clients, several of my clients actually have been doing, is using their book in the pre-sale portion of the sales cycle. So I have one client, he's based in the States, and what he does is he works with high-end clients. We're talking about people who are spending tens of thousands of dollars with him in any one time. And what he does is with any new prospects who are interested in speaking to him, he insists that they read his book. So he sends them a copy of his book and he says, read this book because this book will give you an idea of where the issues are in your company. And then when we have a discussion, we get much more out of that 1 hour discussion than if you just come to it completely green and you don't know what I'm all about. So he actually makes a point and he actually says, if you don't read the book, there's no point in us having the discussion. So that's one way of doing it. And that helps you. Can you see how that helps the diagnosis? Someone reads your book, they really understand what you can do for them. You may have case studies in your book that they go, oh yeah, that sounds like me. That's something that I've gone through. So by the time they get to the call, you are now just saying, okay, so tell me about what you read in my book that resonated with you. And then now you can diagnose similar problems that they've got. And obviously the solution is your product, your program, your service, whatever it is that you do, and you tailor it to them. Now that might be a little bit too much for some. I've got some clients, so I can't do that because my clients are so busy. If I tell them to read an entire book, they won't have read the entire book by the time we have a call. So that means I'll never get to a call. So then you can do, so I've got a couple of clients who do something different. Instead, what they do is they send a PDF version of their book because they don't want to send out a tangible copy because it'll cost them too much money. They send a PDF version of their book and they just highlight parts of the book that they want that person to read. And again, that makes that person feel like, oh, wow, that person's actually gone through their book and told me, just read these sections because they're pertinent to what you're going through. So what both of my clients do there is they do a small questionnaire before someone books a call. And then once they've booked a call, they send them the PDF with just highlights of their book of what I hope, am I making sense here? Let me know if I'm making sense, where you can go through your book and just say, these bits are pertinent to your issues. Please read that first before you get on the call. And again, what that does is it makes that person feel like, wow, this person's trying to understand me. They're trying to understand what my issue is before I've even had a call with them. So by the time they get on the call, they're already pre-sold to working with you because they already think you've done so much for them. You've already started helping them, figuring out what the issues are that they have. And then you turn up on the call and you knock it out the park because they just feel like, wow, this person's amazing. So there's different ways. You have to figure out how it will work for your business. But whatever you do, don't just think of your book as something that you write that you stick on someone like Amazon and then that's it. Yes, just doing that in itself will still give you credibility. People will find you and therefore then find your business or brand or nonprofit, whatever it is that you're doing. But it's the equivalent, I guess, of just I guess it's a difference between, like I say, the analogy would be like if you had a store, you just do wonderful window design and then that's it. And you're just hoping people will walk by and go, oh, that shop looks interesting, and they'll walk in. Now you could have certain amount of success if you have an amazing window designer, you could have a certain amount of success just doing that. But wouldn't it be so much better if you can entice people? Wouldn't it be better if you had people just outside the store saying, hey, come in, we've got a special offer, come into my store? You'll get more people coming in. That's what you need to think of your book as. You can just create a book and stick it on someone like Amazon, one of the other platforms, and then just be done with it. Or you can be proactive and think, how do I bring my book into my sales process? And one of the ways to do that is how can you bring it in to the pre-sale sections of the sales process? So those are several ways that you can do that. The next one is peri-sales. That's during the sale. This is something that I didn't even realize that I was doing, but I do it. Did I do it to you, Margaret? You can tell me if I did it with you, Margaret. I didn't realize I was doing it until a number of my clients told me, oh yeah, I do that. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing that needs to go into my zero selling system. So what we do, and I use this with my book, is you in the call quote sections of your book. That sounds a little bit crazy. You're like, but you wrote it, so why are you quoting sections of your own book? Someone more intelligent than me, probably some kind of psychologist, probably tell me why this works, but it works. You actually picking your book up at the call and saying, whenever somebody says something in the call, you're like, oh yes, there's a case study in my book about that. Pick the book up and actually read the case study out to them. If they say something else and you know you've covered that in your book, you can go back to it and say, oh yes, I actually covered this in my book. So this is how we solve this issue. There's something about people seeing that this isn't just advice you're giving on a call. You have to remember, people have got very used to now getting onto calls with very slick salespeople who know exactly what to say. They know exactly how to close you, and people don't like it. To have someone who's actually, they know that, okay, this person isn't just telling me this. This is advice that they've put into a book and it's available publicly to millions of people if they want to buy it. That gives you gravitas. That gives you credibility. That's the whole point of these kinds of books anyway, is to give you gravitas and credibility. The problem is most authors just stick it on a platform and then that's it, they're done. It's like, no, use that gravitas, keep your book with you. It's not, put it this way, it's not by accident that my book sits over my shoulder. That didn't just happen by accident, you know. I am showing off a little bit. It is like, this is my book, it's a bestseller. It's a bestseller in 4 flipping countries. There you go, blood, sweat and tears into that book. So I'm going to show off about it. And the number, I don't even know if I did this with you, Margaret, but the number of times I've had a one-to-one call with somebody, I've literally gone off my treadmill and I've picked my book up and I went, oh yeah, well, let me show you this. And then I've literally started talking to them, or I've started showing them like one of the, you know, if I graph like this, which was the one that you're looking at right now, I will actually do that. I don't know if I did that with you, Margaret. Did I actually get off did I not? There's probably no reason for me to, but I do that quite a lot, where I will just get off my treadmill and I will take my book and I'll start reading parts of my book to them. I don't know why it works, but it's so powerful. People go, oh, wow, so you wrote this in your book. There's something about that makes them go, well, she must be right. She's written about it and it's publicly available in a book. She's not just telling me on a one-to-one closed environment. It's advice that she's put into a book and thousands of people have read. This must be good advice. Yeah. So think of how you can use your book while you're speaking to people, and not just in a one-to-one call. I don't know if maybe you do exhibitions, for example. I know a number of my clients exhibit. Again, you see how you can use your book to help you during your calls, during any kind of conversations that you're having with people. Okay. Oh, I'm going backwards here. And then the final one is post sale. So this is, like I said, when people need to go and think about it. In most cases, unless you're selling something that is quite nominal, you know, then most people need to think about something before they say, yes, this is what I want. Again, this is something that I don't do, and I really, really need to start doing it. This is my problem. I spend so much time working with my clients. My own book and everything I do suffers because of it. But I've got one client, several clients who do this, but one client does this amazingly well. So what she does is she actually gets sticky notes, like you can see on the left-hand side, and she will go through her book and put sticky notes of pertinent things that they discussed during the call, and she will mail that copy of the book to that person and just say, here's a few more things that I just picked out from my book that I think will really help you. And again, she reports she gets most of these people end up becoming a client, or at the very least, they return her call and want to speak again and iron out a few more things. So the opportunity is there to have another conversation. Remember, books are really different. Books are, they're forms of information like anything else. And yet they're probably the only form of information that is really seen as a gift as well. If you think about it, if somebody sent you a catalogue or someone sent you a business card in the post, you wouldn't thank them. You'd be like, okay, thanks for sending me bump in the post. Not that it's like I didn't need any more bump in the post. But someone sends you a book in the post, and instantly people go, oh, wow, that's really nice of you. Thank you so much. There's something about a book that is very, very different from all other kinds of content. And you can leverage that. You send somebody a copy of your book after a call, especially one where you've gone through and you've actually said, look, these sections are really important. You don't have to do that. I've got some of my clients who are too busy to do that. So they just send a copy of their book. But this lady, what she does is she goes through a book and just puts in a couple, 2 or 3 post-it notes on parts that are pertinent. And she reports she gets lots of these people who otherwise may have been lost, maybe have then not wanted to work with her. They come back and they end up working with her because they feel seen and heard. They feel like, oh, wow, not only did this lady really listen to me on the call, she then went through a book and put post-it notes on the bits that I should read. That shows huge amount of respect for that person's time as well, because not everybody has time to spend 3-4 hours reading your entire book. But if you pull out the bits that are pertinent to them, so these are just some of the ways. You might even find a new way that I don't even know about. And if you do, by the way, guys, please let me know, because by the way, this is already out of date. As in, it's not out of date. That the strategies are evergreen. The strategies in the Freedom Master Plan you can use right now. This is in the Freedom Master Plan. But since the book came out, I've had a few more clients who've done other things that are not in the book that need to go into the book. So hopefully by the end of 2025, I want to have the 3rd edition out because there's more strategies to go in there. And that could be you. So think you can maybe come up with something that I've not been able to come up with and my previous clients haven't come up with. But whatever you do, don't just write a book and just leave it on a platform. It will still do you good. I always say a book, as long as the book is professionally written and published, even if you do nothing at all and just stick it on Amazon, some people will find it and you will get gravitas and you will get credibility for it. However, how much more could you get it to do for you? How much more hardworking could it be if you just took time to think about how you can really leverage it? And really think about how can I use my book during my sales process or whatever you call, from actually somebody finding out about you to then working with you. How can you use your book through all the phases or as many of the phases as possible? I hardly meet, put it this way, apart from my clients, because, you know, they know the Freedom Master Plan and they're implementing things like that, I rarely meet authors. I know lots of authors, but when I say, okay, so how are you using the book in the sales process? They go blank, like, what do you mean? I'm like, What do you mean? How am I using my book and myself? Well, it's like all they usually say is like, oh, well, people, people heard about me because I was speaking at an event. And the reason I was speaking at that event was because I'm an author. So then they heard about me. That's it. And I was like, okay. But that's just somebody's just found out about you. Great. The book helped you with your visibility there. What else are you doing? How else are you leveraging your book? And most authors just go blank. They've never even heard of how else you could use your book. They just thought a book was something that you wrote once and you just stuck on a platform and there you go. It can be that, but then you're not using it to its ultimate abilities. And hopefully you can see there's now so many different ways that you can use your book. Now, this lady, Lillian, she published a book with me back in, I want to say 2021. I've got a bad feeling it's 2020. Where are all these years zipping by? It's quite scary. I'm just getting older and I don't know how this happens. But I think it was 2021 when she published a book. And this lady has done so well. She's implemented practically, she's using a book at every stage. She uses it at pre-sale. She uses it at peri-sale. So she always has a book with her whenever she's speaking to people. When she does events, she always has a copy of a book. So whenever she's speaking to people, she can whip a book out and go, oh, yes. So this is, let me just read out this bit. This is what I said in my book. I think this is what you should do. Or she's reading out case studies and she uses her book post-sale. And as you can see in her little testimonial to me, boom, the book will do the marketing and sales for you. It's been such an incredible resource to have for my business. That's what it can be if you really leverage it. Please, whatever I'm not saying you have to use it every single, I mean, if you do, if you're a superstar like Lillian and you use it pre-sale, peri-sale, and post-sale, your business is going to go through the roof. You don't have to use it at every single phase. I still need to do it. I still haven't worked out exactly how I'm going to use it pre-sale and post-sale. I'm very good using it peri-sale. Most of the conversations I have, I end up, getting my book out and talking through parts of my book. I've started using a little bit in pre-sale, not really doing it much post-sale yet, but try to do something at least. Whatever you do, don't be like one of those authors who literally just publish a book and that's it. And they sit back and it's like, what are you waiting for? The world to stop turning? Someone told me, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but someone told me recently that somewhere between 300 to 500 books are published on Amazon every single day. Not even week, every single day. So you sticking a book on Amazon, no matter how good it is, no matter how polished it is, just sticking it there and then just sitting back, you've got to get out there. You've got to be I also jokingly say you've got to be a little American. Americans are really good at self-promotion. They're bloody good at it. Our culture in the UK doesn't really allow for it. We have to be a little bit more like our American cousins and be a bit self-promoting. So think about your current sales process. You'll know your current sales process, how people come into your business or your brand, your nonprofit, how they find out about you, then how they move from finding out about you to really figuring out, yes, this is what I need this product, or I need this program, or I need this service. And then post sale, what happens? You already have a process. How can you bring your book into your process in many different ways as possible? If you do that, you'll have what Lillian has, and Lillian loves her book. She's just like, my book just does so much for me. It really does the heavy lifting when it comes to the sales and marketing of my business. But that's because you put the effort in and really worked out, how do I use my book in as many of the phases in my sales cycle? Okay, so it may take you a few days of brainstorming. It is well worth it. It's well worth it to take a few days out. If you've got a business partner, if you're in a network of other entrepreneurs or whatever it is, it's worth taking time out and brainstorming, whether with yourself or with other people, and really figuring out, how am I going to get my book into my sales process? Because once it's in there, it can do incredible things when it comes to persuading people to work with you. Okay. So let me come out of this. Do we have any? Oh, so Antonia had to leave. Oh, bless her. She's a teacher, so she's never able to be here for very long. Bless her. Okay, so thoughts ladies, I've only got ladies today, so I can just say ladies. What are your thoughts? Have you used anything like this? Or I know, Margaret, you don't have a book yet, so you're probably thinking, well, I can't really use it yet because the book doesn't exist. But, has that given you ideas of how you can use your book for your consultancy? And Jean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I'm particularly interested because I've just published only an ebook and I feel it's not real enough and I really want to get it into a proper book.
Yes.
But I was thinking, okay, first thing, I could just print it out and, have the cover, like so you can see a cover, pretend sort of thing.
Yeah, that would do.
It makes it all more real, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
No, I like
Do
that.
it.
I mean, it's not entirely, my process because the book, but there'll be bits in the book that will be relevant. So
exactly. And
yeah.
if you've got the PDF version, there's nothing to stop you from literally sending the PDF version. Just that in its own will make people be like, oh wow, someone sent me a book. That's awesome. But even better if you can annotate bits of it or just say these 3 pages are the most pertinent. Do you have in your sales process, do people fill out maybe a short questionnaire before they book in for a call with you or anything like that?
A bit, but maybe I just need to think a little bit more like what it would be the key need that the book would meet.
Exactly.
I think I like the idea because it's quite long also, so I don't want to send them anything too big.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely don't want to send them something too big because then what will happen is you delay them actually speaking to you because they're taking 2 months to read your book. So you don't want to do that. And then now the books become a hindrance. So that's why it's so good that you can send something and if you can annotate it. But that's why the questionnaire comes in really well because if you can ask them a short questionnaire before you figure out what are the main issues that you're having. So for example, if someone, this is something I need to do, I just don't have the time, but I need to do this. When someone books in a call for me, what would be great is for me to have a couple of questions in the questionnaire when people book in with me on Calendly to say, what do you want to do with your book? Now, this is something at the moment, Margaret will know this because we've had this conversation recently, is something at the moment that I ask during the call. We kind of figure out how you're going to. But I've sat there and thought, it would actually be more clever maybe to ask that question during the questionnaire. Then that means I could have, for example, when Margaret booked in to speak to me, I would have known what she's wanting to do with a book. I could have then sent her a copy of the Freedom Mass Plan and put post-it notes or a PDF version and annotated and said, have a read of these sections of my book. This will give you an idea of how you can use your book in the way that you want to use it. And that, I mean, Margaret liked me enough to want to go into my program anyway. But
Margaret didn't stand a chance, I can tell.
But she definitely wouldn't, if I sent her a copy of my book and annotated bits of it, she definitely wouldn't have stood a chance. She would have been like, yes, I definitely need to work with this woman. She's awesome, but yeah, so even I'm thinking of like, how do I, and there's no wrong or right way. It's different for each business. I only have one client who's very strict and he literally will not speak to people unless they've read his book. However, he can do that because he's already, before he even wrote the book, he was a bit of an authority figure within his niche. So people are waiting desperately to speak to him. So if he says you have to read my book in its entirety before I speak to you, people do it because of where he's at already. Most of us are not at that kind of stage in our careers, so we can't all do that. I can't, for example, force people to read my entire book before they speak to me. So it's kind of figuring out what works in your business. But whatever you do, I must say, I'll sound like a broken record, but whatever you do, don't do what the vast majority of authors are doing, which is they write a book, they stick it on a platform and done. I'm thinking, oh my God, what do you have this amazing resource, use it, really think about how do you bring it into your sales process as much as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting actually what you're saying, Mitali, because this, as you said, I've not published a book yet. However, I have had several national reports published through the government.
Use those. You can use those.
So what I've done with the book is actually, and again, it's not something I sort of thought about doing. It's other people prompted me to do it. And over the last 3 months, I've had a lot of universities start to follow me on LinkedIn, which is why it was important to keep LinkedIn going. So I think the target audience will be people who are studying at universities
Yeah.
around criminal justice services. So and again, the way I've set out the book is pretty much what you've just said. So each chapter has I've used the reports that I've done in the past as the information for each chapter. So I've sort of started with how did I start life kind of thing. So that
Yeah.
the whole point about that is about saying, you might be an ordinary person, but I got an award for extraordinary work done extraordinarily well. So an ordinary person can become extraordinary with the right support and opportunities and whatnot. So that's just an opening part of the book, if you like, to
Yes.
sort of draw people in. But then I have broken it down into my time as a probation officer. The probation service stuff that's going on at the moment in the country is awful. So that will help people to understand that. I was then a prison governor, so
Yes.
working with a special unit and high security and everything. Then doing the national transformation into what became the National Offender Management Service, was pulling all of that together. So that's another chapter, which actually is going to be really, really interesting now, because I have a meeting with the Shadow Minister for Crime Reduction
Oh,
next
yes.
week in Parliament. And I'm going to talk to her about what they need to do. They need to go back to what we were doing 10 years ago to try and correct the damage to the services that we've got now, that this government have done to all public services. So that's all there. But going back to the business side of it,
Yeah.
the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now is to try and fill those gaps, by sharing my experience and working with people.
I love
So
that.
the idea of that, the final chapter will be about this is what we're doing now and why.
Oh,
Nope, she's gone.
So it's actually it's
Okay.
interesting what you've just said. It actually flows the way you've just described it. I'm hoping to have it finished by the weekend, but
Woohoo!
we'll see.
yes. Awesome. That's
Good
fantastic.
for you.
Yeah.
That sounds
Fantastic.
great.
But this is really, really good. I'm glad it is. I'm so glad that we met. First of all, I'm so glad that we met, Margaret. And we really do. I mean, you've got such an important book. We really need to make sure that this is a book that isn't just something that's written and people go, oh, isn't that a fantastic book? And then that's it. Oh, you still there, Margaret? I think we might have
Yeah, sorry, it froze again.
Oh, that's right. But yes, we need this book to be something that is utilized by other people and you all the time. I mean, yeah, I think that's what frustrates me the most when I speak to a lot of authors who have written a fantastic book, but it's just something that they did in that time period. And then it's like they're not really doing much more. There's so much. Your book can be, honestly, the hardest working sales and marketing material you have in your arsenal. It could be more hardworking than any website, even social media. It could be because it's a piece of content that has gravitas and credibility attached to it in a way that no website does, or no social. Everybody has social media, everybody has websites, everybody has blogs. It's just not a big deal anymore. Children have YouTube channels, so it's just not a big deal. There's no gravitas attached to it. Your book is a piece of content that has credibility and gravitas attached to it in the way that no other piece of content, bar, I suppose, if you have a ton of money, if you then get a documentary on Netflix or something like that, then that would be bigger than a book. That's the only piece of content I can think of that actually gives you more credibility and more gravitas, is actually putting together a documentary and selling it to a major channel. But that will cost you hundreds of thousands of pounds. I actually know somebody at the moment who's creating a documentary for Amazon Prime, and he's now on his 4th round of fundraising, crowdfunding. He's already raised £80,000. He thinks he will need another 100,000 before he finishes. It's just, I mean, this guy's a machine, so he will do it. But it's beyond me. I couldn't do that. It's just too much for me. Whereas writing a book is not going to be anywhere near as arduous as putting together a documentary. So it's something that's within our grasp, really. But what really annoys me is most authors just don't even know or don't even think about, how am I going to use my book? It's more like, let me just download my brain into a piece of content, then I'll stick on a platform, and then that's it. And so as long as you know, and I'll make sure you don't do that, by the way, Margaret. I will make sure that you don't do that. But yes, I'm so happy that you're kind of seeing how this book can be leveraged, because that's what it's all about. It needs to be something like Lillian does. Lillian leverages a book. She's using it practically every day. Whenever she's speaking to somebody, whenever she has an assistant that sends copies of her books out to people, if they feel they're a good prospect, she follows up people by sending copies of her book. Everything's built around her book. And that's why she's doing so well. She could have been someone who just wrote a book and just stuck it on Amazon, and that's it. And she wouldn't have anywhere near the amount of success that she does have.
Yeah.
Excellent. We've got a few more minutes. Any more questions or? No? Okay. Right. Well, thank you for coming. And Margaret, I was going to say, if you want to stick around after this, so we can actually have a chat, just want to see how things are going with the program and that sort of thing. Is that all right? But yes, if there's no more questions, thank you so much for coming to the forum. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Joycey. As I said, you will be, did I not put, oh, there it is. So there's the link, but it's not clickable. That's annoying. Let me change that now, so that way you can, where's the clickable link? It should be the clickable link. That's what we need. Here we go. I thought I put a clickable link, but that's okay. Is that better? Can you guys click on that and see? And then make sure you do choose a cause to donate to, and then that way we can make a donation on your behalf. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. You will get the workbook tomorrow, which will go through things in a lot more detail, so you can really get an understanding of how you can use your book. Jean, please do let me know how things go with your ebook. Like I said, it doesn't even have to be a real book. The ebook, if you've got the PDF version, you can annotate parts of that and send it to people before the call. You can send it, or after the call. You know, after you've spoken to them, you can annotate parts of that PDF and send it to them. And that will give more gravitas to what you've just said at the sales call. Or if you do it pre-sale, when they do come to the sales call, it gives it more gravitas.
Yeah. Cool.
Let me know how it goes. Let me know what results you get from it.
Yeah, thank you. Have you walked far today, honey?
I have no idea. You know that I don't measure how many. I usually walk about 4 or 5 hours a day, so I think I do. Even though it's quite slow, but I do.
I'm amazed by you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so used to it now. I'm convinced that in my sleep I'm walking. I'm pretty sure in my dreams I'm just walking now. It's just doing this gentle lulling.
I've never seen you not walking.
And I'm just doing this for hours. This is just my life now, isn't it? Going nowhere, basically. Just walking and going nowhere.
Love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's super.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
you.
Bye. Okay, so let me